The group of friends had been planning their weekend getaway for weeks, eagerly anticipating their trip to the cabin in the woods. As they drove up the winding dirt road, excitement filled the air. The cabin was exactly as they had hoped, nestled in a clearing surrounded by tall trees and a babbling brook. As night fell, the friends settled in, unpacking their bags and cracking open a few beers. They laughed and joked, enjoying the solitude of the woods. But as the hours wore on, they began to notice strange noises outside the cabin. At first, they dismissed it as just the sounds of the forest, but the noises continued and grew louder. One of the friends, a skeptic of the supernatural, went outside to investigate. But as soon as he stepped outside, he felt a sense of dread wash over him. The woods were eerily silent, and the darkness seemed to swallow him whole. He quickly returned to the safety of the cabin, telling the others that something didn't feel right. As they tried to sleep, the noises outside the cabin grew louder and more persistent. They heard strange whispers in the wind and the sound of footsteps crunching through the leaves. But it wasn't until one of the friends went missing that they realized they were not alone in the woods. The group frantically searched for their missing friend, but he was nowhere to be found. They called out his name into the darkness, but their calls went unanswered. As fear set in, they huddled together in the cabin, locking the doors and windows. But as the night wore on, their fear turned to terror as they realized that something was hunting them. They heard scratching at the windows and doors, and saw shadows moving outside the cabin. The woods seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. The group soon realized that they were facing a supernatural force that was beyond their understanding. They had stumbled upon an ancient burial ground, disturbed the spirits that lay there, and were now being hunted by vengeful ghosts. The remaining friends knew they had to get out of the cabin, but the woods seemed to conspire against them. They struggled through the darkness, branches grabbing at their clothes and thorns cutting their skin. They could hear the ghosts closing in, their whispers growing louder. Just when they thought they were doomed, they stumbled upon a clearing. But their relief was short-lived as they saw that they had stumbled upon a sacrificial altar. The air was thick with the stench of death, and they could see dark symbols etched into the ground. As they turned to run, they were suddenly surrounded by the ghosts. They were trapped, with no way out. The ghosts began to close in, their faces twisted in rage and agony. Just when they thought it was the end, a burst of light illuminated the clearing. A group of hunters burst into the clearing, armed with rifles and blessed talismans. They had been tracking the supernatural entity for years and had finally found its lair. The hunters quickly sprang into action, firing their rifles and reciting ancient incantations. The ghosts howled in rage and pain, but the hunters stood their ground. They had trained for this moment, and they were determined to banish the malevolent force that had terrorized the woods for so long. The battle was intense, with the hunters and ghosts locked in a fierce struggle. The friends watched in awe as the hunters fought with a fierce determination, their bodies illuminated by the glow of their talismans. Just when it seemed that all was lost, one of the hunters landed a critical blow. A burst of holy energy shot from his talisman, striking the ghost in the chest. The ghost howled in pain and then dissipated into the nightmare. With the defeat of the first ghost, the others quickly fell. The hunters worked in perfect harmony, their weapons and magic complementing each other perfectly. It was a sight to behold, a battle between the forces of good and evil. Finally, the last ghost was defeated, and the woods fell silent once again. The hunters approached the group of friends, who were still shaking with fear and disbelief. They explained that the burial ground had been disturbed by a group of loggers years ago, and ever since then, the ghosts had been seeking revenge. The hunters told the friends that they were lucky to have survived, and that they should never return to the woods again. As they packed up their gear and drove away, the friends couldn't shake the feeling that they had been forever changed by the experience. Days turned into weeks, and the friends tried to return to their normal lives. But they couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching them, waiting for its next chance to strike. And then one day, they received a letter in the mail. It was from the hunters, who had tracked down their address and sent them a warning. The letter read, "We have banished the ghosts, but their wrath will never be forgotten. You must always be vigilant, for they will seek revenge on those who disturbed their rest. You have been marked, and you can never escape their vengeance. Beware." The friends looked at each other in horror, realizing that they were never truly safe. The ghosts had marked them, and they would always be watching, waiting for their chance to strike. The friends could never escape the feeling of being hunted, and they knew that their lives would never be the same again.